Hello and welcome to the daily newspaper analysis, an initiative of the UPSConline.com and Ambition IAS. Today we shall be discussing the newspaper of the 22nd of December 2017. So coming to the first article, this is an article on the editorial page and it is named as the GST, a work in progress. The opinion is that we need to immediately move towards 3 tax slabs and eventually 2. Now, before delving into the article, I would like to mention that the authors of this article include the alumnus like C. Rangarajan, who is a former RBI governor. So, whenever you come across an article like this, which has been written by such a high level dignitary and such an expert, the article automatically becomes important. And another critical point that I want to bring to your notice here is that whenever an article is written by such a prominent alumnus, you should observe the simplicity with which the article is written. And this is the key to UPSC answers also. That the simpler you answer, the more understandable it is, even to a 10th standard student, your answer should be understood. So this is one idea that I wanted to introduce regarding answer writing in UPSC. Such articles provide a good opportunity to see and understand the demand of answers in the UPSC mains paper. So now coming to the article, what is the context? The context of the article is that we all know that GST has been introduced in India, and now this article is about an analysis of the GST. Also, it is an analysis in the backdrop of the ideology of GST, which was one nation, one market, one tax. So the article is about analyzing how successful is GST, what else can be done. So those are the basic ideas that the editorial discusses. Now, coming to the history of GST. Now, the article discusses that GST is though a new provision in India, but as a global phenomenon, as a global practice, it is old. And it has been recommended as an important reform and standard recommendation under the Structural Adjustment Program by the IMF itself. And approximately 165 countries have adopted the GST. Also, in the history aspect, the author brings to note that no one size fits all. Therefore, each country has adopted a structure depending upon the political bargains and operational feasibility. So, this is a keyword. Political bargains and operational feasibility is a good keyword and you should note it down. Another thing is that he talks about something called the international experience. That is, what are the international best practices? In this, 3 points have been brought about by the author. The first is that internationally low thresholds are best accepted. Also, few rates, and also some time period, some preparation time, some concept of something called preparation time before the introduction of GST. So these three concepts the author has brought about. Now he says that why a low threshold is important. Low threshold, I would like to correct. He has suggested that no low threshold. I'm sorry, a high threshold he has suggested on the contrary. So why a high threshold should be there? He says that a threshold would mean, suppose the margin beyond which GST will be implemented. So he says that this margin should be rather on the higher side. Why? Because if it is on the lower side, a large number of people will come under the ambit of GST, and this can impact small businesses in the country and ease of doing business in the country. Then the author justifies that if you keep the threshold high, a large majority of the people will not come under the ambit of GST. However, it will not impact the revenue collection much. This is the claim that the author is giving. He gives a case study where he says that if a threshold is kept at, this was a foreign study, so the figures are like that if a threshold is closer to, suppose, $100,000, then that would eliminate 75% of the taxpayers. However, the revenue losses would be less than 4%. This clearly means that the large chunk of the taxpayers is above, and they are the main source of revenue. So instead of increasing the tax base, the author suggests that it should be a progressive kind of a tax. So that is one suggestion that the author has given. Another suggestion is that there should be fewer rates. At present, the GST model in India has 4 rates and 3 cess rates. So in total there are 7 rates. So the author says that these should be reduced to first 3 rates and then to 2 rates. That is a suggestion he has given. Also he says that some preparation time is important because this gives time for time to the to the taxpayers as well as the tax collectors to train themselves up to the requirements of the new model. So that is one thing. It also helps educate the taxpayers. So that is another aspect. So these are some international experiences that the author has brought about in this article. Now, further he comes directly to India's context. And the issue with India is that India is a federal country. And the federalism structure of India is unique in itself. So a bargain had to be made between the 29 states as well as the central government. So definitely the GST model here is not the most ideal and it is unique in its own form. Also, the author says that certain compromises have been made just to start the process of GST, because if these compromises would not have been made, then GST rolling out GST would have been difficult. So in such a scenario, these compromises have been made in the Indian context. Also, then like I previously mentioned, that there are 4 tax rates and 3 cess rates, which the author has suggested to reduce down to 2. Also, further he says that that in India's case also, because the need is to strengthen startups in India, promote small businesses in India, in that case, the threshold should be kept at a higher level as it will ensure keeping large sector of small businesses outside the ambit of GST. However, the revenue shortfall will not be much. Also, the author gives a good point here is that if the smaller businesses are kept outside the ambit of GST, it will ensure lower costs for the consumers of these smaller businesses, which is again the low income group families who are the large consumers of these small businesses. So it is altogether a move towards equity also. It will help ensure equity in the system. So the author here has suggested that a tax slab of 50 lakh rupees should be there. That is another suggestion that the author has made. Now, further, the author has come up with some suggestions. The suggestions that the author has given are improving compliance to ensure revenue augmentation. Now that is the key. Rather than bringing more and more people under the ambit of GST, it is better to have a better compliance amongst those who are already above this 50 lakh slab. That is one thing. Second, he says that there is a need for strong political commitment to implement the reforms, investing in tax administration and taxpayer services. Extensive public education programs and support from business community is the key to success. Is the key for the success of GST in India. So that is what is the opinion that the author has given, and it's called GST a work in progress. Now GST is a major reform, and a question on it and its analysis can be expected in UPSC. Taking a completely pro stand will reveal that would probably highlight that you are not very apt in your knowledge, because definitely GST in its present form has some lacuna. Also, taking a completely anti-GST stand is not available. So the opinion given by the expert himself is the opinion you should immediately extract and use it in your paper, that GST is definitely a work in progress. All right. And these are the analysis for GST. Now coming to the next article, the 2G scam judgment, scam or folklore. The 2G acquittals call into question the political investigative narrative of past decade. Now, the context is that we all know that the 2G scam judgment has been given, and the chief culprits in the scam have been acquitted by the court. So this whole judgment raises some issues which have been brought to the fore through this article explicitly as well as some implicitly. So I wanted to discuss the issues. The issues here are, first and foremost, is that of credibility. Now many institutions have been in the ambit under the 2G scam, like the Comptroller and Auditor General, the CBI. A credibility on these institutions has been raised after this judgment, because the 2G scam was something that was unearthed by the CAG report, and the CAG that time was Mr. Vinod Rai. Also, the CBI had filed a charge sheet against these politicians. In UPSC answers, you should avoid taking names. That is why even I just don't stress upon taking names. Otherwise, even I can name A Raja and all, but I don't want to name, because this is as a practice you should avoid taking names. You should just say some. Then communication minister, telecommunication minister at that time. That is how you can address, rather than being specific by taking names. All right. So credibility of institutions is under doubt. Also, impact on the industry. Now, why impact on the industry? Now, when the CAG issue was when the 2G scam issue was raised, the Supreme Court had cancelled the licenses of these telecom companies, because on the grounds that they were not auctioned. And the 2G scam itself was said to have been favoring two companies, that is Unitech and Swan. So these two companies, telecommunication companies, were said to have been benefited. And after the 2G scam, opening up of this issue and the Supreme Court judgment, the industry suffered losses. So that is one issue, that if the country comes up with such cases, and then 10 years down the line the judgment is against the politicians, so it affects an investment sentiment in the country. Not only then, more so now, because the case seems to be shut for now. So it clearly brings out a picture that the entire scam, or the entire news or reportage on this scam, was a mere gimmick. So in that case, the investment sentiment of the country is disturbed. This is the second issue that can be concluded from this judgment. Another issue is that of public perception, and how reports are not the sole basis for criminal trials. So this is an issue of public and media trials. Now, whether these people are criminal or not, even today there is an anti-public sentiment towards these politicians. Why? Because they have undergone a media trial where they were already convicted of this case. That is why digesting this judgment of the court is becoming difficult for the people, because they had already formed a bias against them. So this is the issue of media trial. If you ever get an opportunity to discuss or highlight the issue of media trials, the 2G scam issue is of utmost importance. This is a very good example that can be used. Also, another issue is that there is a need for diligent investigation and efficient prosecution. Now, questions are being raised on the prosecution followed by the CBI, whether even judges have commented that the spirit for during prosecution was low in the CBI. So those questions about how not only framing charges is important, but also what is important is diligent investigation and efficient prosecution. So that is the gist of this article, and that is how it is to be applied. Coming to the next article, that of Austrian shift. Now, the context is that in Austria, a new government has been formed. This government is far right. It is a far right coalition government formed of the People's Party and the Freedom Party. Now, though the political aspects are given in detail in this article, they are not of much importance, because nobody is going to ask you the political scenario in Austria. What is important is the ramifications of this new political development in Austria. Now, the ideology of this party, this far-right party, is that of Islamophobia and anti-immigrant stance. That is what is the ideology that they have taken. Now, this is very much challenging, because this is turning out to be a pan-Europe phenomenon, where a number of countries are getting governments who have these similar ideologies. There is a populist upsurge in Europe which is anti-immigration, anti-Islamophobia, anti-European Union for that matter. The Brexit is a key example. So the issues are that these populist upsurges are striking at the grassroots, or the very core of European Union, which is integration. How can a European Union ever exist if it is going to object to ideas of immigration? So that is one very core issue, and this is a threat to European Union itself. Also, this is in tandem with the idea of anti-globalization movements across the globe. So there this becomes important. So that is the only ramification of this political development in European Union, and whenever you get an opportunity to discuss, you can discuss that such movements are prevalent in Europe. Now, coming to the next article, for a wider food basket. Now, basically, this article is about that while undernutrition remains high in India, overnutrition too is becoming an emergency. Now, this is a good article, though a small one, but it discusses some wide issues. First and foremost, what is the context? The context is that India is suffering from not only undernutrition but also overnutrition. Firstly, that. Secondly, in the context of undernutrition, India has been ranked 114th out of 132 countries in stunting amongst children less than 5 years of age. Also, India has been ranked 120th out of 130 in wasting amongst children less than 5 years of age. These are the figures as per the Global Nutrition Report 2016. Now, this part is given here. There are some figures. Though I'm not an advocate of large number of figures, but these are some figures that I would definitely say you should remember. These are classic figures. They should be given in essays. They should be given in answers. They are a good piece of factual information which you should have. Also, another issue that is brought about is something called hidden hunger. This is a good point. Whenever you are supposed to analyze food security, you should bring out this concept of hidden hunger, which is a deficiency of vitamins and minerals in the food intake amongst the citizens. And this is not only a problem amongst the lower income groups but also amongst the higher income groups. So the issue here is that often the food basket of India is specifically not very diverse. India is largely dependent upon the cereals and the sources of milk and vegetables, and these kind of things are not very much a part of the food basket, and therefore there is something called hidden hunger that is prevalent in the country. This is in the form of iron deficiency amongst women. So these kind of things are important. Also, here the author brings about another point which is relevant, is that the food basket is largely limited to wheat and rice. It is not extended to traditional meals of India like millets and bajra. So these were important for India. Now diversification of food basket is being stressed upon. Even the food security bill has a provision for millets and these hard cereals. That is another important point. Then the author brings about the issue of overnutrition, where he gives some more data relating especially to urban population, urban men and women, and it states that the problem of obesity is again rising in India. This is important because obesity is largely a problem associated with developed countries. So if India is having high figures of obesity, it is also showing that India is at a very crucial phase where it is facing twin problems of both undernutrition as well as overnutrition. The issue of obesity often leads to non-communicable diseases like diabetes, strokes, heart diseases. So this is going to have a huge burden on the health infrastructure of the country, which is not apt to meet the challenge of these rising diseases. That is one issue that the author has brought about. So that's about this article. Now, coming to the next article, overseas votes. Now, this article is basically a small one. It is about the Representation of People's Act. This Representation of People's Act is directly in the syllabus, and under this act, there is a section 20A of the RPA. Now, there is an amendment bill in the present winter session of the Parliament which seeks to amend this section 20A of RPA, because in the present scenario, though NRIs are eligible to vote in Indian elections, but they need to be physically present to vote. That is the issue. They have to provide some documents like their visa and passport, and their name will be there in the voting list, and if they can come physically at the voting booth presenting the documents, they can cast their vote. Now, the provision here aims at doing away with this criteria of being physically present and allowing NRIs to cast their votes through a different mechanism. For example, a proxy vote through some other person, or maybe there were provisions of voting through the internet. So those are some analysis that is being drawn. So you should know that the bill is in the Parliament. Let's see what the decision is taken. So it will become important then. Right now, I just wanted to bring to your notice that there is such a move. Now, coming to this article, Should adultery be a crime? Now, this is the most important article according to me in today's paper. I shall be, there are three views that should adultery be a crime. It says yes. First says yes, then it says no, it should not be a crime, and third says that it's complicated. Now, all the three views I shall be taking, but I will be discussing adultery in detail here, because previously also I have discussed this issue of adultery under a separate, under another editorial. But there the scope was not so much in detail, so I haven't discussed it very much in detail. Here I will discuss it in detail because I'm getting a perception that this is an important topic for UPSC mains, especially from the point of view of ethics paper. It might not appear so much in the polity paper, I mean the GS paper too, but from ethics point of view, adultery, definitely this is a topic that has a huge scope. So I'll explain this topic a bit in detail here. First and foremost, what do you understand by adultery? Adultery is a sexual relation outside of marriage is adultery, in simplest of terms. Now, why is the issue important? There are three main concerns under this law. Section 497 of IPC criminalizes adultery. Now, there are three issues. First is that should adultery be a criminal offense or it should be a civil offense? That is the first major debatable issue. Second issue is the issue of equality. This is an important one. Now, here you need to understand something. Suppose there is a husband and there is a wife, and the husband has a relationship with another woman, and this woman is the wife of this ex person. All right. So this is an adultery. These two people are in a sexual relationship outside their marriage. So this is adultery. Now, what happens is that if this person is to be prosecuted for committing this crime, then the husband of the woman in relationship with H, the ex-husband can only, this husband X can prosecute the person who's having an affair with his wife without his knowledge. Now, if this wife wants to prosecute her own husband, she cannot. If this husband wants to prosecute his own wife, he cannot. So here the woman, though this person, the male can be prosecuted, but the woman under no case can be prosecuted, even if she's the abettor. By abettor, we mean that even if she's lured this man into a sexual relationship with her, she cannot be convicted, and only this man can be prosecuted. So the issue is that it is a criminal offense, but there is no equality. Why? Because only the man can be convicted for adultery and never the woman. In no case this woman can be convicted. This woman cannot convict is a wrong word. This woman cannot levy any charges against this woman. That is not a provision in law. So this is the issue of equality. The law is biased against men. It only convicts men for adultery, but not women. That is the issue. Now, the Supreme Court has held a status that under Article 14 and 15 of the Constitution, there is a provision for exception which is going to be given to women. So that is the status of the Supreme Court. Another issue is that of women being treated as mere objects. Now, why are women being treated as mere objects? Is that suppose this man has had a sexual relationship with this woman. If this relationship is without the consent of this woman's husband, it is a crime. But if this relationship is with the consent of this husband, it is not a crime. So that is one thing. Also, the weakness of this woman in the marital relationship, this woman cannot levy charges against the woman or cannot levy charges against her husband. So this merely states that the sexual desires, the sexual preferences of a woman are under the control of her husband. If the husband will consent, this woman will have to have a sexual relation with this man, even if she does not wish to have one. It is justified under law. So this is a very complex kind of a situation. It is an archaic law. It does not stand the ground of modern societal norms and the position of women in a marriage today. So these are the challenges that are being raised. These are the basic issues. Now, coming to the points that have been raised in the article. First and foremost, the first part of the article says that yes, adultery should be a crime. Now he definitely justifies his article, his stand based upon some points. So these points are that first and foremost, breach of sanctity and contract of a pure social institution, that is marriage, is definitely a criminal offense. So adultery is a crime. Secondly, criminal law is a guardian of the moral principles of society as well as its historical roots. So on those grounds, again, adultery should be a crime because criminal law's basic idea is to protect the moral principles of a society. The third thing is that on issue of independence of adults, the larger issue is that a relationship of adultery or an act of adultery for that matter causes a wreck, and definitely it should be punished, it should be criminalized. Further, the author suggests that criminalizing of adultery will ensure a deterrence to adultery, and if we decriminalize it, it will be rather an encouragement to adultery. So he says that criminal punishments for it acts as a deterrence. Also, the final point that the author has made, that marriage in Indian context is sacrosanct. Marriage is a very highly esteemed social institution, and it should not be, taken on the basis of Western ideas of marriage. In India, marriage is altogether a different ball game. So that is what is the opinion that this person has given in the favor of yes, adultery should be a crime. Now, coming to the second opinions, where the lady says that no, adultery should not be a crime. Why? Because she says that fundamental rights of equality is inconsequential of gender. So, if in the present law under section 497 there is inequality between men and women, and this is a breach of the fundamental right of equality. Secondly, she says that everybody has a right to life and liberty, and on this ground people should have a liberty over their own body. So that is one issue that the lady has raised. Further, she says that power is vested in the husband over the sexuality of his wife, as I discussed before. Also, if he consents, then there is no prosecution. That is what I had mentioned, that if the husband is consenting, the adulterous relationship between another man and a woman in that and his own wife, in that situation, the man having this relationship with his wife is not to be held guilty. So this is a patriarchal mindset where women are simply considered as an object, as a property of her husband. Also, this power by the husband, this power to prosecute the man, the decision to prosecute the man or not, is something that can be misused by the husband. So that is another issue. Also, there is an issue, this is the ethical component, this issue of right over one's body. This is something that is important under ethics. And then, does this right remain after marriage? That this is in the ethical overtone of this issue. Also, coming to the third point, that is that the stand that it's complicated, it's neither a very yes nor a very no. Here the author says that issue of personality of wife is mixed with the husband is something that is being validated by this law. Traditionally, it was believed that a woman has no identity and she is only a mere extension of a husband. So this is what this archaic law is saying. Also, the issue of treating women as victim is controversial. Now, even if the woman who is in this relationship with a man, in an adulterous relationship with a man, in that case, the woman is not being tried, nor is this woman being held guilty because of the ideology that the woman is a victim. This is something that is not acceptable, because in the modern times, a woman should not be considered as a victim. It hampers the equality of men, and also this makes it a law which is discriminatory towards men. So that is one opinion. Now, the issue of adultery with unmarried woman. What if a man is having a married man is having a adulterous relationship with a unmarried woman? In that case, there is no accountability of that man. In that case, the crime of adultery is not a crime. So there is a lot of ambiguity in this law. That is the whole understanding which you should at least have. Then the issue is that even if the woman is not being held guilty, the castigation of women in the present society is a definite. thing to happen. When a woman has had a adulterous sexual relation with another man, now even if her husband can only prosecute the other man and not the woman, and the woman is considered as a victim, in real terms she will be castigated and treated as an outcast in the society. So that is another issue that the author is bringing about. So these are the various perspectives of adultery. The matter is as of now under the Supreme Court, and it is sub judice. A judgment on this is expected, but this is an open debate and it has a number of issues which I have discussed. So in such a scenario, the topic becomes important. It becomes important for analysis and also important in ethics paper, again I'm mentioning. So with this, I would conclude today's discussion. I thank you all for watching this video. I hope you will recommend it to your friends, and we shall all be welcoming your feedback. So hope to see you tomorrow. Thank you.